Yeah. Oops. Let me make the screen proper again. Wait, Okay, this always happens. Wait, 1 minute. Sorry. Okay. Hello, everyone. Forgive the screen. I'm just managing the screen. 1 minute, This is what happens when you don't have a producer. Okay. Hello, Hannah. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Jason. Dr. Jason.
No lah. Just call me Jason. We are friends. Okay. I want to ask you specifically, how has your day been?
Are we live?
Yes, we are live now. We are live now.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to ask you specifically, how is your day today? Yeah, I just want to know what goes in the day-to-day life of an MP.
Every day is different for us. In a lockdown, I think there's very little that we can do. Very little programs, but our phones are as busy as ever. Our office is dealing with a lot of vaccine inquiries from the residents, and we are also helping out to compile. We are helping to compile the list of residents who are bedridden, who cannot go to a vaccine center. And so our office is busy doing that, and also organizing another round of food distribution. The last round was just before Raya. Now we have to do food distribution again. So there's a lot of planning because of the SOP. You are not allowed to gather people, and so there's a lot of thoughts behind it. You have to make sure that they don't gather. You have to make sure there's crowd control. How do you send those food to them safely? So all these things lah.
Okay, I mean, I'm just concerned about one thing. You said you had to deliver food. I mean, are these people? Would these people have starved if you didn't deliver food? What's their situation? I mean, I'm just asking, why do we need to deliver food to them? I'm ignorant about this part of society that so dependent on them. Yeah.
There are people with odd jobs, especially if they are odd jobs. The SOP prevent them from going out now. Then they don't have daily income. And if they have a family to feed, 50 ringgit, 100 ringgit, 2 days wages, those things make a difference if they cannot go out. So we have community reps everywhere. We have, the Persatuan Penduduk, the Residents Association. So they will usually let them know, and then these reps will then contact us and say about 50 families have reached out to us and they would like food support. Can we organize this? So we will put together a very simple bag of food. We just do whatever we can to help.
It sounds like a lot of work, and it feels like, I don't know, like, are you concerned that it's not government driven so much as like the MPs themselves must do it? Like, can the government do more? Should they do more? It feels like they should do more.
I mean, I accept the fact that elected representatives are meant to help people. But, when you talk about food basket, that's something that we have been highlighting since MCO 1.0.
Yes, I remember.
Rina, we all ask, where are the food baskets? Of course, they say they have delivered to the families. But the fact that there are still so many other families coming to the elected representatives, majority of them from the opposition, shows that maybe the help is not extensive enough and there is a need for us to do more. So I'm very, very thankful. Actually, in Segambut, my residents association are very proactive. In the first round of MCO, whenever we needed help, we reached out to the residents association to help us, and they have purchased food baskets for us to distribute.
Wow.
So for that, I'm very thankful that the community in Segambut, they have never failed us.
Yeah. I remember during the I remember all the MCOs. There's 3 of them. I remember the first MCO. It was shortly after Langkah Sheraton, and there were a lot of concerns after that about children suffering at home, women suffering from abuse at home, and then I'm sure that must have been a nightmare when you're stuck at home, literally in a lockdown with your abuser. And then we are in MCO 3.0 now. Has there been any changes in policy and measures to sort of like prevent this kind of bullshit from happening again?
In the first MCO, I remember when they temporarily suspended Talian Kasih. That's the helpline for the vulnerable groups. A lot of people issued statements, and then that was reinstated. And then we called for a domestic violence committee that we have set up before Sheraton moved. We asked for that committee to meet regularly to exchange data, because this domestic violence data, a lot of people suffer in silence because it involves a family member who is an aggressor or perpetrator. As such, a lot of victims will be reluctant to lodge a complaint if they don't know the full picture. For example, if I'm going to lodge a complaint against my son for hitting me, an elderly woman, right? I want to know, after I pick up the phone, after I lodge the complaint with the police, what will happen to my son, or what will happen to my wife, or what will happen to my husband, and where will my children go? So many times people don't know the end result. They then do not start to lodge a complaint. That's why we say awareness is so important, to give people the complete picture, give people the assurance that this is what will happen if you lodge a complaint. And because of that, that means there are many people who suffer in silence. So there is a need to reach out. And government alone cannot do this. When it comes to reaching communities and helping the vulnerable, I will tell you that nobody does it better than the NGOs in Malaysia. The NGOs in Malaysia are very organized. They are out there doing work even without the support of the government. So in a time like this, you have to work with them. You have to listen to them and listen to their data, because their data is probably more accurate than government's data, because people will be afraid to call the police, but they will pick up the phone and call the Women Aid organization, for example, because they feel that, okay, it's less threatening. So there is a need for government and NGOs to exchange data. So that was in MCO 1.0. And as a result, you remember MKN used to blast out SMS telling people about, don't suffer in silence, get help. So that's what MKN SMS should do. You are supposed to broadcast that, useful information that will benefit people. I hope that they will do more of that. And so now we are at the third MCO, third lockdown. My concern is not so much of the data that we have received. My concern is what we do not know. Because when you have children suffering in silence, you are unlikely to hear their cry. And I think that's the sad part. They don't know how to reach you. They don't know how to pick up phone. They don't know how to WhatsApp you. So for me, at the back of my head all the time, I'm thinking, now, actually, how many other calls we are not hearing or we are not receiving? How many other cries we are not receiving? How many other kids are suffering in silence? And so when you're talking about domestic violence or child abuse, you really need to rely on the public, members of the public, neighbors and relatives. If you see a trend, don't wait until it's too late to complain. Pick up the phone and call, because a knock on the door by the police may help. And I remember that case that happened during the lockdown, the boy in Malacca who passed away. And the sad fact is, the neighbors actually saw him standing in the compound in the garden, looking really, really sad. And so I feel that we need to pay attention to this vulnerable group. We have to do more for them.
Right. So that's very important to all those watching. Be proactive. Get in touch with your NGOs, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone when you see something. You see something, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I was throughout this time also, especially on social media and Twitter, two incidences come to mind recently, and the end result is the same. It's like some guy is trying to insult you or pearly you, and then you take them on, and then they end up being slammed on Twitter. Like there was one guy who tried to make a poem, a puisi dalam bahasa Melayu, and then you came up with a better poem that people say is follow the proper structure. Then he got slammed. And then recently there's an academic from I won't say his name, and then he also got smashed on Twitter. What goes through your mind when you take on this kind of social media fights or arguments, let's say? How do you engage?
I wouldn't call them fights.
Yes.
I think people need to understand the role of government MPs and opposition MPs. There are people who want to see us more vocal, But then there are people who say, just stop scolding the government. Everything the government does is wrong. Why don't you just, work with them or do their jobs? So people need to know that that's the role of the opposition. When we see things are not right, it is our role to speak up. And when opposition reps are on social media and they speak up, I mean, we don't have an admin to manage our social media accounts. What we read and what we post is instant. And I suppose that kind of engagement is good. And so what I've noticed is Twitter in Malaysia. Twitter is really the place. I get news from Twitter now. I mean, that's my source of news. I go there first because that's always the first to release news, Twitter. And the people there are very informed, so they do their homework. So when you defend the government or when you attack the government, there are people there studying your timeline, what you have said before. And that's exactly what happened to the last two guys on social media. And so they went on their timeline, they went on what they have liked before, and the whole thing just blew up. So it's not planned, obviously, but the people are informed that way. They will do their homework, and they will make sure that when you want to speak out on an issue, you better have facts, and otherwise people will counter you.
I was speaking to one of my one of my favorite Twitter personalities, Sharizan Johan, and we met up for coffee because previously whenever I see him engage people, for lack of a better word, trolls, let's say, okay, and whenever he engages them, not only does he engage them with facts, he knows the law, he knows the constitution, he knows the history, he even knows what they have tweeted before. And then when he he defends the positions, he makes points non-stop every day. And I was like, man, how does this guy handle it? So I managed to have coffee with him, and he said something very interesting. He said that one of the reasons why he's so active on Twitter is because Twitter still seems to be the platform where reason can prevail, whereas on Facebook, on Facebook you can run your own cult. On Facebook you create your own bubble, and then when say someone posts something, that all the comments will be, yeah, you're right, and then you can have your own echo chamber there. But Twitter is more democratic. Do you feel that difference?
I think Twitter is easier for you to check timeline. So what I'll do now, when I read a tweet and I felt something is not quite right, I'll click on the person's account and I will look at when they joined Twitter, because the government has this budget for JCOM. Basically people who will defend the government's position, and so I started to see a lot of 2020 accounts. That means they've just set up Twitter last year, and some of them even 2021. And then you look at what they have shared in the past, and a lot of the shares or retweets are all of a certain minister, for example. Then I know, okay, this position is a biased position, so I can ignore this. Or this is a legitimate query and I need to respond. Of course, we cannot respond to everybody. But I think people on Twitter seem to do their homework a bit more. That means they will actually probe further to see, what's the reason behind this tweet. And because of that, I think you get more reliable information coming from Twitter.
Prior to, right before we came live, I was asking about, how's the vaccination thing happening in Segambut and all that. And you mentioned you saw not so much hesitancy, but vaccination problems. And I've seen that throughout the whole timeline of people in various constituencies. What's it like in Segambut? Is it the same flavor throughout, or?
Yes, we get a lot of inquiries from residents on why their senior citizens have not been given appointments, or when senior citizens come and say, I don't know how to install my Sejahtera, can you please help me? Because they come because they cannot enter a supermarket because they don't have my Sejahtera. And so we will take the time to help them install my Sejahtera, and then they will ask, like one senior citizen came with a walking stick. He walked so far to get to us, and he said, I just want to know what's WhatsApp, because everybody tells me to join WhatsApp. What is WhatsApp? Then you have to teach him, if you have credit. If you don't have credit, WhatsApp can be dangerous because everybody will be sending you stuff. Don't download these. So a lot of education time to engage and to empower them. So I feel that in a time of pandemic, we have to make sure that we provide all kind of ways for people to be vaccinated. I think, like I tweeted today, there is no perfect system. So you can have an appointment system that is well and good, but maybe we should consider giving a fast track system to the very elderly people, and if you're afraid of, without a appointment, there'll be crowd. Maybe you can do week 1 for those born in 1930 to 1935. You can walk into any centers and get yourself vaccinated. I don't think we're going to get thousands of 90-year-old coming on the same day, right? So if you phase it out like that and you provide all kinds of platform for people to just get themselves vaccinated, I think that will be very assuring.
I think it's pertinent to bring up that tweet. You said 9 hours ago, you tweeted, the idea of mass vaccination is to get the vaccine into our bodies as fast as we can because of the increases in deaths. Let's be less defensive, overprotecting who has control over my Sejahtera, which ministry has the final say, which minister has veto power. There is no need for a perfect system. And this brings me neatly to my other thing that I want to ask. And so my feelings about the vaccination rollout in Malaysia is like a roller coaster. In the beginning, we get vaccines, then it's very slow, then I get depressed, then we can sign up now, then why haven't I gotten my appointment? My first dose was really smooth, then after that the website is so hard for people to handle. So it's like a roller coaster, And then recently I thought, okay, we are back on track, the Khairi Jamaluddin has announced, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and that's great. And then the Singapore Prime Minister addressed the nation, and when I listened to his address and I listened to what the Singapore government is doing, I know we can't compare apples to oranges, but I feel like that is so much better. That why did, like, their system is elderly senior citizens, you just walk to the center, don't have to register, you walk, you just get jabbed. And like when you're on Twitter, I see like, people in Bangkok, you can go to 7-Eleven and register. And I think right now a lot of people are calling for the decentralization of this process. Like, did you watch the Singapore PM's address?
Yes, I saw the part he talked about the, senior citizens can walk in. I really feel that in Malaysia, with MyKad, that is supposed to be a smart card, we are not utilizing MyKad enough. At the moment, the only time you use MyKad is probably to surrender it to security guard when you want to enter a residence neighborhood, which I think, there are a lot of potential for us to use the MyKad more. There's a lot of wastages. Everybody is giving welfare help, but we don't really know whether the same family is receiving 10 help from 10 people. And so if you have all this data collected in your, MyKad, it will help us manage everything better and more orderly. Yeah.
Sometimes I forget how powerful our MyKad is, because when I drive and then I forget my touch and go and I'm stuck there, the attendant will say, never mind, give me your IC, and the IC can function as a touch and go.
Yeah, exactly.
So like we should definitely do more of the MyKad. Like listening to all this, like you have all these data at your fingertips, and yes, I know I'll be called a DAP stooge for this again, but I think I speak for a lot of people when we say that we miss you being a minister or deputy minister.
Deputy minister.
Yeah. How are women and children doing I mean, what's do you mean? I'm sure you're shadowing that cabinet position. What can they do to improve, if any?
Like I said, I'm very thankful that in Malaysia, the NGOs are, really on the ground helping. One thing that really moved me after Sheraton move happened, it was MCO 1.0 in March last year. And when the opposition reps didn't receive food basket from the welfare department for distribution, this NGO called Pit Stop reached out to me. This Pit Stop is doing feeding in Kuala Lumpur. And this NGO came to my help and said, I know that you don't have allocation now, but let us help you feed those who need help. And no questions asked, they helped mobilize and provided so many food baskets to so many residents in Segambut. And that's how an NGO is supporting an elected rep. And so that was a very humbling experience for me, to know that really we always think that government or elected reps are very powerful. I would tell you that Malaysia is okay at this point. I mean, you don't hear of people dying of hunger yet, right? But if not for the NGO doing feeding, I think you would have heard many cases. So we need to make sure that we treat these NGOs well. These NGOs need support, which means our SOP today must not make it difficult for these NGOs to do their work. Never mind that the government is not helping them, but don't stop them from giving help to others. So there are many NGOs don't have paperwork. They were told that they have to apply for MITI. So there's a lot of confusion on the ground. And I hope that they will, get this sorted out quickly. The other thing that I'm sad about is I think there's a lack of policy planning. I think ministers are paid to fix policies. So ministers should not do what NGOs are doing, or ministers should not do what ordinary people can do. That's the reason why we pay you a minister's salary, to fix policy. And with MCO now, you don't have events to do. So which means you have a lot of time to call for meetings on Zoom. You can do 8 meetings a day and fix policies. Fix those. Stop doing lawatan, because I can do lawatan. I'm an opposition. Jason, you can do lawatan, but it takes only a minister with ministerial power to fix policies. So do what you're supposed to do. And that's what I feel frustrated about, that they are not using the power of a minister to fix those problems. There are actually a lot of things that they can fix.
Yes, but you see, if we don't do lawatan, then it's not glamorous. It's not, people don't know that we are doing our job. That's why doing policy very boring. No one will see. But when we do flashy things, that's when we get noticed, and we can put photos on the gram.
No, I'm not saying don't do lawatan at all, but you must do policy. You need to do policy. Because only you, minister, have the power.
I think I speak for a lot of people also, and we felt that post 2018, post May 2018, there was, a breath of fresh air, and PH wasn't perfect, whatever, but it felt a bit different, right? And there was optimism in the air. I definitely felt it, the optimism, and so let's say right now, and this is just a hypothetical scenario in my head. Let's say in the future, PH or its like claw back into power. How do you prevent the sort of betrayal that happened in Lanka Sheraton? Is there a way, even if it's possible, to prevent these kind of betrayals?
I think we need to find a way to stop defection by looking at the laws, or finding ways to limit those kind of activities. The other thing I think very important is, with this kind of mass defection in the last round, constituencies that are affected, like Ampang, Gombak, next election is very crucial for these residents, these voters there, to make a stand. And I think we need to send a strong message to people who defect, that this kind of culture is not acceptable to voters anywhere. Now, if the voters punish politicians like that, then it will send a very strong message to anyone considering doing this. The problem with people who do this is, sometimes you think that, I won't do it because I'm afraid of what the voters will do to me. But there are people who are not thinking about standing again, or they probably know that they're not doing a good job and the party is not going to fill them again. And so for them, this is the fastest way maybe to get myself, get out of jail card, or whatever that is being offered to them. We don't know. So there are many reasons, but I think the voters play a key role. I think our worry now is for the next election. We want to make sure that people still believe in voting. People will still come out and vote. And I think we must not give up hope.
That's yeah. I would. That was my next question. I've been very open with how sometimes I feel down in the dumps,
Yep.
and how sometimes I feel because like you see people. I always feel like I'm always on the cusp of, okay, do I stay in Malaysia and fight, or I have a daughter now, is another place better to raise a daughter, that kind of stuff. So I mean, and then there are people like you and other friends like YB on Keming who give me a sense of optimism, you know. So yeah, I think optimism is much needed in Malaysia now. And people like you provide some ray of hope, lah, I guess.
I think
Yeah.
I have my days lah. I have my moments. There are days that I feel very disillusioned. There are days I feel very charged up and motivated to go out and fight. I think what really inspired me is, the greater the injustice, the more fired up I get. Like, I want to fix this.
Yeah.
Like today something happened that really, really affected me. Last
Oh.
night, I got an email from a food I from a rider lah. I mean, nowadays they don't just deliver food. So a rider emailed me and said he and his friends have been compounded. They receive a compound, and they are very worried because they don't have money to pay. And so when I did our homework and we found out that, okay, I can help write an appeal letter on their behalf, but the compound will still be issued and a fine will still be given out. And these are riders. They don't have a workstation, right? So like people who go to work, you have Niti's letter, you have a pantry in your office.
Yes.
That means you can still eat at your workstation. But what about riders? Where do riders eat? You can't expect them to sit by the roadside because all the restaurants are shut. Now, if they find a mama or garai, there are tables and chairs there. Are they not allowed to sit at the table and chair just to have a meal while waiting for the next order? Or what about a group of them being given a compound for sitting at a park? Because, parks, you have table and chairs. And so where do we draw the line in enforcing SOP and at the same time understanding that there are different jobs, different scenarios, and for me, I am most moved by the fact that these people know that it's dangerous out there. They know that COVID is everywhere, but they have to work and they continue to go to work. They are not, putting up their hand and say, hey, government, give me money. They are working. We should be more sympathetic. We should be more supportive and educate them. Maybe you tell them, look, you cannot sit like that in the park because it's, you may spread COVID to another friend. Why don't we educate? Because COVID, you need to educate people about the danger of the virus, right? So why don't we use that kind of discretionary power to help them? And today, one of them actually sent me a print screen of, they have the way to monitor their order. That means, if you work, you get the amount being given, and they showed me zero, and I was very moved. I felt very sad that there are actually people who go out and actually work under the hot sun and still get, they are out there and zero.
So wait, so means the rider was working the whole day, but he got zero, as in he did.
No, he's showing me today, that
Oh.
I still don't have income yet, which
Oh, okay.
means, right, I don't have money to pay this compound.
Oh, I see.
How am I going to pay this compound? And, for some people, 10,000 is nothing, and they can afford to do this again and again and again by breaching the SOP. But for the person who is earning daily wages, even if you compound them 100 ringgit, it's too much for them. And that's where I feel that we have failed as a nation, because there are really people who are doing the right thing, going out to work and having to work and put themselves at risk at a time of pandemic and still be fine for this. So that days like that, I feel like, oh my gosh, I have a voice. I better use my voice effectively to help them. So sometimes people say, why you want to highlight just 6 riders, what? Or why you want to help those who are wrong? Clearly they are in the wrong, and they breach the SOP. But so this is what I've told my team. This is something that really just happened for me in the last few days. I told them, think we are in a very unique situation now where that we can go to work. There are people who cannot, and therefore our mindset must change. So those days when times are well, we usually say, okay, we only help those who are in our area. Okay, so we don't go and cross territory and go and meddle into other constituency. But if you have now a bedridden grandmother calling you because that's the number that they have found, I'm not going to tell them, look, you go and find your elected rep. I need to help. And so I told my team, let's change our mindset in a time of pandemic. Let's think about, who can I help today? And if I can help even one or two, it will relieve that 1 or 2%. Why don't we do that? Yeah.
So I think that has motivated me to start tipping my Grab food riders now, seeing as how much. Yeah. Okay, so before I go on, I'll just let everyone know that we'll be taking some questions after in about a few minutes time. When you mentioned about being fired up, what I see on social media now, and I compare it to, say, the pre-2018 days, I find that surprisingly, people who my friends who I never thought would be vocal or would even dare criticize the sitting government, now today I see a lot of them every day, just like, this is injustice, this is wrong, you can't do this, here is a better way of doing it, you shouldn't be doing this, let's emulate this country. So it feels like one of the small silver linings is that nowadays a lot more people are being more vocal, a lot more people are voicing out their thoughts, as we should in a mature democracy. Freedom, weirdly enough, in my opinion, there is more freedom of speech now somehow than before. Do you feel that?
I agree with you, but I think that what we are seeing is, on Twitter, the people we follow probably are like-minded people. I think there is a need now to ensure that other parts of Malaysia and other non-Twitter users feel the same and feel empowered the same way. Yeah. So that's something we have to do.
Out of the echo chamber, but I think, do you feel also that people who are not active on Twitter, let's say, the men and women on the street, they themselves feel that, frustration and anger? They must be, because things are not good right now.
Well, somebody told me this, 2018, when you spoke of 1MDB, very few people could relate to 1MDB. But today, the anger is so real because everybody is affected by the SOP. Everybody needs to get to work. And when they are asked to produce letters, then they have to go and find out, hey, what's meaty? Where do I get letters? And then the more they find out, the more frustrated they become. Yeah. So in a way, maybe that's why we are feeling the anger, because it is affecting people's day-to-day activities. Compared to 2018, it was 1MDB, was so far away, so distant, I cannot relate. But now,
yeah. And on a lighter note also, like recently you posted photos of your daughter, which is from many years ago, but she's 10, right? She's 10 already, and your daughter reminds me of my daughter, because we are both in a Chindian relationship. And sometimes it's funny because, like, when I take a photo with me and my daughter, it doesn't look like she's my daughter. It looks like I just kidnapped a Malay boy because she has short hair and everything. So she doesn't look like, like it could be my daughter. So you have more experience being a parent. Are there any advice you would give to new parents like me, who are 1 year and a half in this journey?
Don't get offended when you go out and people look at your kids and they say, oh, your kid is so pretty, surely she looks like the father.
Oh, yo.
And then you stand there and you think, oh, what does that mean? And I get some of those remarks, but I think my advice to young parents really is to make sure that you guard your children's privacy fiercely. Social media is not a safe place for children. So I always tell parents, even an innocent photo of the baby in diaper, you may think that it's innocent, but really there are people out there who are collecting photos like that and reusing photos like that in a different place. And so parents need to be more informed. And there is a need now, especially in pandemic, to make sure that we give them some attention and not just allow them to spend all their time online. and also to have that quality time, like the interaction. It doesn't have to be 3 hours quality time. Even if it's 10 minutes, you have a heart-to-heart talk with your child before your child sleeps. Have that kind of conversation. Because if you don't start now, you will find it will be too awkward when the child is 18. And then you are trying to have heart-to-heart talk or quality talk at that time. It doesn't work. So make it natural now. I come from a family. My parents are quite conservative. That means, we don't hug. The only time I remember hugging my mother once was when I fell down from the bed and I was looking for somebody, but a lot of Chinese families, I can't speak for everybody, but for my family at least, we are not that expressive. And so when I have my own family and I have my kids, I say, I want to make sure that I am expressive towards my kids, and so I tell them every day that I love them, and not when times are bad or when times are too late. Yeah, so I think there's in every race there are good cultures that we can pick up, especially if you're in a mixed marriage. But I feel that it will help if Asians, we become more expressive towards our kids. And I think we need to manage the expectation we have on our kids. Today, they are dealing with apps. Those days we were only dealing with homeworks, whether or not you finish your homework, pass up homework in school, but today they have to produce videos, they have to produce so many things under such circumstances. So I think we need to be more gracious to the next generation, understand what they're going through, the stress that they go through. We have never experienced that during our time. Yeah.
It's always a new era, and a new generation has its own challenges. Like I remember working. Remember when I started working in hospital, you have the seniors who always say, nowadays you have it so easy. Back in my day, things were always hard. They always feel that their generation was tougher, and they don't give the benefit of doubt to the new generation. I think that applies to parents and children as well. You mentioned that, yes, another thing that I identify with you is that we're both in mixed race relationships. And you said your parents are conservative, right? Was there any pushback, which I had? Not my parents, but my relatives, larger relatives, when you marry an Indian or marry someone of your race. Did you experience that in the beginning?
Thankfully both sides of our families didn't have that problem, so they were very embracing. The only challenge was the fact that we got married soon after we met each other, and then we got engaged, right? But I think today that the test really is in your commitment to stay married. I think that's the challenge today for a lot of young families. And I feel that both extended families have done very well in helping to embrace the different culture. The only challenge I had in the beginning, and sometimes even now, is the fact that we have very different eating time, especially dinner time. The Chinese eat very, very early. 6 o'clock we need to eat already. But my husband, 6 o'clock is too early for dinner, and so 7:30, 8 o'clock, that's like the normal time, right? So that kind of thing, we have to find adjustment.
Yeah. So you mentioned just now, okay, I mean, if it's too personal, you don't have to answer, but you said that you married shortly after dating.
Yes.
Just how short? I never knew this.
We wrote that. I wrote that in my book, Becoming Hannah. There's a whole chapter dedicated to it. So basically, what happened in January 2007? This 1 year before the election, January 2007. Yeah. So we are both Christians, and I January 2007, I received a prophecy. Prophecy means it's like a word telling of what is to come. And the prophecy that I received at that time was, in June this year, you will receive a proposal. And this is the man that God has prepared for you. And so obviously we are called to test out the prophecy. That means you don't just take it and believe it 100%. And so in May, 1 month before June, I was still single. So I thought, no way this prophecy will ever come to pass.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Anyway, in June, I was preaching in church, and as I was preaching, my husband was in the congregation. I mean, he's from the same church, and we were friends. But he felt at that time that this is the wife that God has prepared for him, and so he spoke to me about that. And in June, we prayed about it, and we spoke. We had our mentors, our pastors, people whom we do life together, and we say, I because sometimes when you're young, you think you want to do this, you want to do this. There's always there should be a safety net. There must be, getting counsel from people who are older than you,
Yep.
people who have more experience, and the people around us all felt that this is the right thing.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
and so I wrote about it extensively in my book. And so in June that year, he proposed to me, and I said yes. And then within 6 months, we were planning our wedding. We just knew we had to be married by January 2008, and we didn't know why. Now looking back, I know why, because 1 month after I got married, I was asked to be the candidate for Subang Jaya.
Mm.
And so yeah, so that was my journey in 2007 leading up to 2008. Yeah.
Yeah, that is quick. But hey, he works in mysterious ways, right? As we say.
Yeah.
Okay, now there are some questions. There are two platforms here, Facebook and YouTube. It seems like Facebook is full of positive comments, but YouTube has some questions. Okay, so let's see. um, okay, from Jonathan Mark on YouTube. What do you think should be done to involve the younger generation into politics? Very timely, seeing as how Undi 18 is being stalled. So, what's your answer?
I think there is a need to not dismiss them because of their age or their inexperience. And what we do a lot now is to take in interns, helping people understand that, the anger that you feel outside, you can channel it positively. So when interns come to my office, they then deal with the vaccination problem, and then they understand the problem even more. So there is a need to do something positively, to channel that anger or that frustration into something positive to help others. And so for those who are feeling frustrated, maybe there's a need for you to join an NGO or join a political party if you like. If you don't like mixing with the young, there is Muda. You can join Muda. Just choose a platform where you feel you are not alone. There are people who speak like you, like-minded people, and then go and sort things out. And you don't have to be knowledgeable in everything before you actually do something. If you're passionate about Undi 18, just join the Undi 18 movement. If you are passionate about fighting for vaccination, there are movements like that. There are movements everywhere now. That's the good thing I feel with social media. It's easy for you to find people who are like-minded. Yeah, do something with that.
Yeah, just don't have to be like I said, don't have to wait till the perfect time. Just start now, right?
Yeah.
The what's interesting, when Undi 18 was first mooted, what we call the boomers, the older people would say, what do the 18 people, what do the youngsters know? What do all these 18-year-olds know? No, they don't know anything. But nowadays we see that most of the vaccination misinformation are spread on WhatsApp by that very same generation. All this fake news and misinformation is spread by the people who think they know better. But hey, since as you don't know how to differentiate misinformation and real information, I think that's a valid reason we should trust the Undi 18, because the 18-year-olds, because they are more tech savvy and they don't necessarily buy into fake news as much. There's a very interesting question here by Michael Leong. No relation. Even with Kerajaan gagal, the
Yeah.
Malays still find it difficult to trust DAP. What's the strategy so we can win back GE15?
There is no shortcuts. I believe that, in politics, it is about persuasion. You need to be able to persuade people, not just with words, but with actions. And that's why you can see a lot of DAP reps really work very hard on the ground. And they don't just appear during election. They are there servicing the people. And everybody's constituency is different. They are doing, if you have not check this out, maybe you should look up Norita. She is our Tenum MP, and she is our first Murut lady, member of parliament in Tenom, and read up about her, and you will see, the challenges she goes through in Tenom when there's flood and there's COVID. How do you know, go out and help your voters? And her challenges are very different from my challenges in Segambut. And so you will find that DAP reps everywhere are working very hard to serve the people. And I believe that there's a reason why a lot of them get re-elected again and again and again because of their service. And so today with social media, you can't hide. You cannot just turn up during election and expect to win. So that's how I feel we are doing that now. There are many of us, younger ones and even older ones, who continue to serve regardless of race, Malay, Chinese, Indian, Kadazan. We help you because that's what we believe in. The DAP is a multiracial party. There's still a lot of work to be done. We have to also at the same time convince our grassroots that you can actually you don't have to feel insecure. When I speak up for the Malays, it does not mean that I will fail the Chinese. There is a need to see with a Malaysian lens, and that's something I think the new generation must continue to do to engage.
Yeah, which reminds me of that absolute fiasco that YB Steven Sim had to go through with that Food Panda rider that he was trying to help. I mean, is the classic, you don't help, never mind. Don't make it worse for the guy, because he put a bounty on the guy's identity, and he had to come out and say, I'm a real person, So that's just ridiculous. Something interesting here from Alex Pandian on Facebook. Hello, YB Hannah Yeoh. How are you? You look great. When will Hannah Kitchen be back in operation? Hope I can see your mom's authentic char kway teow recipe. So I remember seeing vaguely this Hannah Kitchen. What's that about?
Dapo Hannah Yeoh, honestly, I cannot cook, but I want to try to look useful in the kitchen. And so I always want to look up, just simple recipe, 1 minute, 2 minutes kind of, recipe, and just put something out there to engage my followers. I work with women, children, and I know there are a lot of mothers out there. I sometimes when I think about something, I need a new idea, I look up YouTube, and I don't watch the 10 minutes recipe. I always want to find the 1 minute, 2 minute kind of recipe. So I came up with this idea. Why don't I just come up with a recipe that is simple for working mothers or working parents, so you don't have to clean up your entire kitchen after you cook. And so I just record with my handphone, and then my teammate helped to compile that in a video, and we just put it out there. So it has been, I think, a few episodes. I know I've stopped. So this MCO, I will try again, a new recipe. It will be back soon.
All right, so Alex, you got a question. You'll be back soon. I look forward to Dapo Hannah Yeoh. There's okay. So this guy made a statement which reminds me that actually in my head I've always Hannah Yeoh MP, but actually you started as Hannah Yeoh Adun in Subang. So this guy named Jonathan, I don't know how to pronounce his second name, Jonathan Zito. So much work was done in Subang during your time, YB. Now Adun Michelle took over, and she herself is doing one hell of a job. So how has Michelle succeeded your portfolio? What are your thoughts on Michelle and the Subang Adun?
I think when you have new people entering the scene and working, of course, everybody has their own leadership style. Everybody has a different working style. So I think Subang Jaya people need to get used to the fact that they have a new Adun, and our working style could be different. I think if you want to know what everybody is doing, you can just follow our social media and then, give your feedback and engage with your elected reps. I mean, even in Segambut, I do have people comparing me with, the former MP, also from the DAP. So people will give feedback. And I think as elected reps, we will need to be open enough to just listen and find ways to improve.
Okay. This is a very interesting question here from Jackson Pang. Okay. YB, which experience do you enjoy more? As Selangor Speaker or as Federal Minister? I mean Deputy Minister. So Selangor Speaker or Federal Deputy Minister?
When I was Speaker, I enjoyed the fact that, I was the first woman speaker and the youngest at that time, and there were reforms that I could do in that position because I was head of the legislative in Selangor. And so, if I wanted to do this, I can move it very quickly. When I was deputy minister, and there are so many ministers, and there are so many agencies, and there are so many limitations, and so I felt I was most stretched in that 22 months in Putrajaya, and for me, emotionally, and the learning curve was very steep when I was deputy minister. But I think I learned a lot in that time, and I learned to think, national. When I was in Selangor, obviously I just thought of Selangor, but national. It helps me understand my role more as a lawmaker in Malaysia. So now when I have an issue, right, immediately I'm thinking now, my solution to this, does that work in Sabah? Does that work in Kelantan? And so you begin to think out of your own comfort zone and try to relate more to other Malaysians out there. Yeah, and emotionally, I can tell you that being deputy minister, overseeing the children portfolio was very, very challenging because the failure of a policy would mean you see a dead child, and that to me is very, very heavy. The load was heavy. Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, I totally get what you mean, and like I remember you said something like it's hard to, when Langkah Sheraton happened, you see, it's hard to give up on all the work that you have done, and I'm sure hopefully somehow or other you'll be back in some shape or form. There's another interesting question. I kind of lost it. From Sasvin Sasvin. Okay, sorry, I can't pronounce the second name. I think you answered this partially in the beginning. Since PN government has limited the allocation for the opposition, how do you really try to get the funds for the people in your constituency? You spoke heavily about NGOs. I'm sure they will favor heavily in your answer to this as well.
Yeah, we not everything can be solved using money. So you have to be creative in reaching out. So when you have 3.5 million being reduced to 100,000, serving the same pool of people, you have to find ways to serve them. And so I'm actually very thankful that the DBKL continues to be very responsive to the issues that we raise. And, DBKL has their budget. And so we do more site visits and we help to channel this to DBKL, so that things that I used to be able to solve with my allocation, now I have to depend on agencies like DBKL or even social welfare department to help. So there are still avenues for us to pursue, but just less amount. And also, when we did that whole online fundraising, because we need to pay salary for our staff. My cost 1 month is about 30,000, because you have to have enough staff to help. In other states, a member of parliament will have a state assemblyman to help him or her. They have local councillors to help them with the local issues like the trees, the potholes and all that. But in Kuala Lumpur, it's a bit different. Kuala Lumpur, there's only one elected rep. They don't have an adun, they don't have a state assemblyman, they don't have councillors. So in Segambut, they only voted for one person. And as such, right, you have to be there for the trees, you have to be there for the land issues, you have to be there for the parliamentary issues. So you have to pau ka liao lah, everything. Yeah. And so you cannot do that on your own. You need staff to help manage, not forgetting social media and online complaints and WhatsApp. So because of that, there are expenses to pay, and we have to, with zero allocation for office expenses, we have to rely on our people to support it. So when we put up an online thing, people donated 380,000 ringgit for me to help serve my residents. And so with that, I will be able to survive 1 year, right? And nice. I hope, after 1 year, we will have, good feedback and report card, and we can go back to the people and say, this is what we have done with the money, this is how we have served you.
Nice. Yeah. One of my friends, Rizal Kamal, is asking this question. How do we get the best and smartest Malaysians to go into politics?
They first have to join politics. Unfortunately, a lot of smart people feel that politics is too dumb for them. So they feel that, I don't have time to be at the coffee shop. I don't have time for gotong royong. I have better things to do with my time. And so when you have bright people thinking like that, that politics just too dirty, politics too petty, I don't have time for this, then obviously you don't have the brightest brain entering the scene. And so I think you need both. You really need people who are bright, but you also need leaders who are humble. I always feel, right, a good politician is one who is kind and one with common sense. I think people don't expect you to be from Cambridge. Not everybody can be Ong Ken Ming or Tony Phua or Yeo Bee Yin. But, you know, we expect elected reps to have common sense. And if you don't know, maybe you can rely on experts. There's always a platform where you can, hire bright people to help you out, strengthen your team. So you need both. You really need people who are humble. And I feel that it's good nowadays. You get a lot of young people who are very passionate about politics. That's very good. And people who are very bright. That's very good. But probably one thing that voters always look out for, they want to see humility. That means leaders who are willing to engage and listen. So you don't mind the backlanes, you don't mind the longkang issue, leaders like that, Chinese, I can't remember the Chinese saying, "Chot tat choi fong." You can enter kitchen, you can go out. That means you are fit enough to serve everywhere lah. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I myself, I'm a banana, so I do not know what is that saying. But if someone can in the comments can type it out and give the English translation, that would be great. But that sounds like a good saying. If you can go in and out of the kitchen, you boleh pakai, is it? Something like that.
There's a saying like, I'm not very good also,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, the next question is a bit gossipy, but hey, we're all in lockdown. Any chance for a good gossip is I'll take it. What do you think? This is from Elwin Yu. What do you think of the recent tiff between Azmin and Ismail Sabri? What is going on?
I find it so interesting that finally they are fighting openly. I mean, before this, one was from PKR, one was from UMNO. They have been rivals for a long time. And so when Sheraton move happened, we found out the friends betrayed us, and they joined the opponent and formed government without a manifesto, without prior working experience together. And I just had no idea how they could serve together, and on what basis. What are your common grounds? Where is your manifesto? At least for us, right, we had a thick booklet, a buku manifesto to help guide, at least shape the discussion, or you have something to fall back on. But when you have zero of that, how do you decide when you have a crisis? And that's why, just like a marriage, you need a covenant. That covenant that you always fall back on when times are tough. For political marriage like this, what is that covenant? Zero. They didn't enter election together. They had nothing like that. And so now, who is going to decide who is more powerful? And you have a prime minister who made 4 of them senior ministers. So who is more powerful? Is it Ismail Sabri or Azmin Ali? Obviously now, everybody is trying to show their relevance, and that's why you have press conference after press conference. This minister will announce something subject to another minister's announcement. So everybody wants to show that they are useful. But I feel that this kind of thing is only a matter of time. You're going to see that crack, because they have nothing solid that binds them in the first place. For them, it's a greed for power, and now like you make your bed, you lie in it.
What you say kind of makes sense now, because initially when you see all these ministers with different press conference, we think it's because you're not coordinated, you're not cooperating. But it's now that you mentioned, it's also because they want to show that, look at me, I have a press conference, I am important, just as the other ministers. If he has 2 press conferences, I must have 2 press conferences. So that's what's been going on. It's a to be polite, it's a penis measuring contest, you have press conference, I must have press conference. That makes sense now. So this leads me to another kind of gossipy question, sub by Michael Tiong. He says, YB, we feel betrayed by Tun M. How do you feel about this? Do you feel the same?
I feel that there are Bersatu leaders then who make a stand. And I don't believe that we are going to have perfect leaders.
Yeah.
Even people who felt that Muhyiddin was good now understand that Muhyiddin also has limitations. So you're not going to have perfect leaders. But there are good things that Tun has done, and you don't want to dismiss that also. The fact that, people like Said Sadiq, Tun, there is also Kubang Pasu, Amiruddin Hamzah, from Bersatu. If they had jumped together, they could be enjoying a minister's salary now, and they could be in Putrajaya. But the fact that they didn't tells us something, about that, and I don't want to take that away, lah. Yeah. So I feel that Tun has done his part, and there are regrets. I'm sure he has regrets. There are good things he has done. There are bad things that he has done. But I really feel that if we want to move on from now, we really need people who will be able to move beyond that who is prime minister's argument and discussion. Let's just move on to, who can govern better with a team of committed leaders, who can have a better cabinet. I feel that we need to move on beyond that Anwar and Tun Dr. Mahathir fight. It's 2021. Surely we can do better than going back constantly to that. So Sheraton move has happened. Whether you like it or not, it already happened. So let's move on now. And people have given Perikatan Nasional a go. They wanted to see that UMNO pass, Bersatu, that big grand combo. They have tasted it now, and it's not rosy. And so people will now want to look for other things. So it's now really up for political parties to show that who can get their act together and who deserves another chance at Putrajaya. I think the residents, the people are now more informed. They have tasted everything. They have tasted DAP in Putrajaya. They have tasted PAS in Putrajaya. And people now have to decide, which one can help them better.
Okay, now before we go on to the last question, I've taken up enough of your time. So the commenters have explained. So the Cantonese saying, I can't pronounce it, but it's normally used by a man to describe a dream wife, meaning someone who can cook for the family and someone who knows how to dress up and look classy. So
that's wrong. So that's a wrong quote. That's a wrong quote.
Okay.
Yeah, I think now to be fair, right, to a lot of young fathers today, I feel that the society has changed today. I have observed in my friends, so many young fathers who are so committed, to look after children. They are the ones who cook. They are the ones who look after the kids. And so I think times have changed, and I'm very thankful. Actually, there are a lot of fathers who are very engaged in raising children together, and I think that's a plus point.
Yep, and I my wife is watching, and yes, darling, I know I'm not that, but I try my best lah. Thank you for taking care of our daughter while I do this fun podcast with YB Hannah Yeoh. Okay, so that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for your time. This has been so awesome. Is there anything that you like to plug or call to action to all those watching so that they can either donate or support a cause or something that you want to blast out? Please do so. We have currently 1,800 people on Facebook, and we have let me see. We have
1,800
on Facebook and 500 on YouTube. So we have about 2.3 thousand people. So what is any last message before we end tonight?
My last message is, I actually have two messages here. One is for any one of you who knows of a COVID positive friend or relative, please don't impose a stigma on them. I mean, life is challenging enough for them, and so please know that COVID can happen to any of us, and so we must not stigmatize them. And I hear of children who have become positive, and how people are so afraid to invite them for birthday gatherings anymore, and family activities or social gatherings in future when the lockdown is over. Don't do that, because COVID can happen to anyone, so don't stigmatize. Number two, Malaysia belongs to all of us. It's really up to us how we want to shape this nation moving forward. And I think every person, the fact that you are on social media, you are an adult, you have a role to play. We all have a duty to hand over a nation to the next generation in a better condition than when we inherited it in the first place. And so let's just continue to do what we need to do. Speak up, get your hands dirty, go out there and serve, and we just try our best. We just do our best. The rest, we leave it to God, how to shape Malaysia. But I feel that we cannot give up. And we must not resign to the fact that there's nothing we can do. There is something. And I think social media is that powerful. So use it, use it to your, use it positively. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, YB. It's always a pleasure in the few times that we get to speak and talk to each other. It's always inspiring. You always speak from the heart, and I know comedians, I always say comedians shouldn't always be overly supportive of politicians or whatever, but I think I speak for many people when we say that we miss you being in cabinet, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see you back in some shape or form in the future. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks
safe.
for watching. Stay safe. Don't get
Bye.
COVID. Bye-bye. Let me just have a few. All right. Whew. Okay, we are not live now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome,
1,008
man.
is quite good, lah.
Yeah. I didn't know. Like you said, you have a rabid fan base, and a lot. Somehow, right? Okay, this. I don't dare to say this open yet. But you know what's weird? Like recently, I find on social media, and I know this is how bad things have gone, is that there are no more interracial squabbles on Twitter. There are no more Cina macam ni, Malay like that, Indian. No, it's all, everyone is united because everyone
on
is
the
suffering.
issues, right?
Yeah, Twitter is issues based now. It's so insane. They are debating on the news and the policies and stuff. So yeah, man. Like
Jason, you're still live, Jason.
What? I'm still live.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, let me check. I'm still live.
My husband just told us that we are still live.
Oh well. Okay, no, on YouTube. Okay. Whew, luckily I didn't say anything bad. Woo! Okay, YouTube, you got
But
extra.
it's okay.
You got extra half a minute.
We are
Okay.
consistent. Yeah, we are consistent. And you were saying just now that it's so good that people are no longer talking about racial stuff, but they are focused on the issues. Yeah.
Okay, wait, let me just end this neatly for YouTube. Thank God I still wearing clothes. Okay, bye-bye YouTube.
They're still live,
No,